types of license class. So I was talking about the different stages of the driver's license, the graduated driver's license program, but now I'm going to talk about the different classes of driver's license that you can get. So once you get your class 7, which is your learner's license, you are able to operate a 2-axle vehicle or a vehicle trailer combination. So that can be anything from like a smart car to a truck, a light truck, a truck pulling a boat, something like that. As long as it just has 2 axles on it, which means like two sets of wheels, front and back, then you're able to operate any vehicle that falls within that range with your class 7 for learning purposes. You can also operate a motorcycle if it's for learning purposes though. So say you did get your class 7 and then you really want to go get your motorcycle license, you could go do that for learning though. You'd have to either take a course or you'd need somebody else with a motorcycle license to accompany you. Or you can drive a moped. I don't know, they look pretty sweet. That one you don't need anybody to accompany you. But if you are driving a vehicle with your class 7, you do need somebody to drive along with you. You need a person supervising you while you're operating. So those are some of the things you can operate with your learner's license. So that stage 1, there's certain conditions to your learner's license. Learners must follow these conditions. You must hold your learner's license for at least 1 year. Like I said, minimum once you get your class 7, you have to have it for at least 1 full year before you can move on to other classes. You must be accompanied, like I said, by a fully licensed non-GDL driver, and they must be 18 years of age or older. They also must be sober, and they must be seated right next to you in the vehicle. So if you are going to go practice on a car or drive another vehicle, these are the things that you have to follow within that and have a driver with you. You're also not permitted to drive from midnight to 5 a.m. So they do that to limit the amount of night driving. Night driving often takes a certain level of skill and confidence and experience to operate a vehicle safely at night. So they put those restrictions on for learners that you're not able to operate a vehicle during those times. And that very likely could come up on a test. So it is helpful to memorize some of these details. You are not permitted to have more passengers than seat belts. That's pretty standard across all of the licenses for safety reasons, obviously. You can also, your learner's license could be suspended after 8 demerit points. And I'll talk more about what demerit points are in another chapter. You must also have a 0 blood alcohol content or THC level. So you're not allowed to be impaired at all if they find any little, even if you had like say 1 drink and you're like, oh, it's just 1 drink and I'm fine, and you're with your learner's license or your GDL license and you get pulled over, that's a no-no. They're not allowed any little bit of alcohol or THC. So those, again, those restrictions and conditions can be found on page 10 of your driver's guide. So stage 2 is, like I said, you did your learner's license for a year and you took a road test, and now you're on the probationary GDL class 5. So these are the conditions while you're still on the graduated driver's license program. You must have your probationary driver's license for at least 2 years. Your license will be suspended at 8 demerit points, so that doesn't change. As you get off the GDL program, you're allowed more demerits, 15, but I'll talk about what demerits are later. Have 0 alcohol level still, so even though you have your full class 5 and you're able to drive on your own, you still have to follow those conditions of 0 alcohol level and 0 THC level. You cannot upgrade to a commercial driver's license or to go to other So you can't go to a class 1 or class 3 like a truck driver for professional reasons, but you could, as I mentioned, go to like a motorcycle license if you wanted to learn that. You cannot act as an accompany driver for learners. So remember back in the learner's condition that said somebody had to be a full non-GDL driver beside you. So while you're a probationary, you're still on the graduated driver's license, you're not able to help others learn. So say you had like a niece or a nephew that had a class 7 and you were trying to teach them to learn, you wouldn't be able to accompany them if you're still on that probationary program. So here is the stages as I went through. This goes into a little more detail, but it's basically everything I said. You start at stage 1, you have your class 7, you have your conditions that you have to follow, and then you have to have your learner license for 1 year. You have to pass that basic road test, and you must be 16 years of age or older to get on to the stage 2. So even if you get your learners, say you were 14 and you got your learners and it was 1 year and then you're 15, you still have to wait until you're 16 to go on to stage 2. So there's a little bit of nuances or details about how you progress through the program. Most of you guys, I don't think have to worry about your age restrictions, but very well they could ask you these details about what age do you need to be on a probationary stage 2 of your learner's license. That could very well be a question on the test. And then to become fully licensed, so in total, the whole GDL program, as I mentioned, would be 1 year as a learner, 2 years as probationary, so a total of 3 years to get your full license. And that's everybody has to start at that stage. And then you have to pass another road test in order to get off the probationary GDL program. And you'll need to display advanced driving skills. So the first road test they say is a basic road test, and it lasts around a half an hour, about 30 minutes of on the road, and they'll ask you certain questions about how to operate your vehicle, how to use the dials and things, and then they'll take you around driving to show and that you can demonstrate certain maneuvers like turning and signaling and parking. And then the advanced road test is a little bit longer. It's about 45 minutes to an hour, and that's where they would take you onto, like, say, a primary highway and get you up into higher speeds, see how you can merge properly. So each level and stage, you're building your skills and your knowledge, and showing that you can drive safely and properly, and that you know all the rules of the road. So now the types of license classes, I had referenced them a little bit, but there are 7 classes in Alberta that anybody can go for. And these are the different classes. So down at the bottom is where we're starting with class 7 as a learner's license. But starting from the top, class 1 is your professional license, and you can drive any vehicle. That can be heavy hauler trucks, that can be buses, passenger vehicles. With a class 1, you can operate any vehicle, and usually for commercial and professional purposes. So anybody who is like a truck driver and does it as a career would have to have a class 1. Class 2 is a professional license for buses specifically. So it's not as common. Most drivers would have, like, truck drivers would have either a class 3 or a class 1, but say that you were just like a school bus driver, you were really specific and you were only ever intended to drive buses, then you could get your class 2. Your class 3 is vehicles with 3 axles. So those would be heavy haul trucks, anything larger than a regular pickup truck. Class 4 is your professional license for taxis or an ambulance or a small bus, and even Uber drivers. If you want to become an Uber driver, you would have to get your class 4 license. That's anytime you're going to be having passengers, and you're going to be getting paid like as a job of carrying and moving passengers is your class 4. Your class 5 is your standard driver's license for cars and light trucks, like you said, or trailer combination. And your class 6 is your motorcycle license. So that's really specific. If you did ever want to drive a motorcycle, you can't just use your class 5. You would have to take an additional training program and get your class 6, and you would have to pass a road exam for that too, and a knowledge exam, and then class 7. So to qualify for any class that you're going for, each and every class has their own driver's test and usually a driver's training program as well that are administered by driver's education schools. So those are all qualified. Anytime you wanted to go and change your class of license, you'd have to take a driver's training program that's been approved by Alberta Transportation. And with those, with any class, there could also be additional codes, endorsement codes or condition codes. So for example, a condition code means anything that's you're restricted on your license to legally operate a vehicle. So for example, I was mentioning they make you do a vision test when you get your learners, and that's to see if you need glasses or contact lenses, or if your vision is perfectly fine. But if that's the case, and if you go take your glasses with you and you use them for your vision test, they will put a condition code on your driver's license. It's code A, and it's specifically for corrective lenses. So basically you have to have your glasses anytime you're going to operate a vehicle. So say you were and you forgot your glasses one day at home, you're rushing out the door and you jumped in your car, and then say you got pulled over because you didn't see the sign that said no turning, and you ended up turning, and then a cop pulled you over. And if you don't have those glasses on you, that could actually result in a fine. So just be mindful. Condition codes can range, and they are on, oh shoot, I wanted to go back. How do I go back? Previous. So those condition codes, there's a whole bunch of them listed on page 19 of your driver's guide, if you wanted to flip there. So they can range from like adequate lenses or corrective lenses to you might need a periodical medical report. You may be restricted to only daylight driving. You may have to have outside mirrors on your vehicle. So those condition codes are in place in that you have to follow them in order to safely operate a vehicle. So just be mindful. Those condition codes mean you have to have them in order to drive. What differs from that is the endorsement code. An endorsement code shows that a driver has demonstrated a specific skill. For example, air brake endorsement. Air brake endorsement Q, most really heavy haul truck drivers, most of those big trucks will come equipped with air brakes in their driving systems. So they had to take an additional course, an air brake course, and then if they pass that air brake course, then they get that endorsement. So it shows that they are able to operate a truck that is equipped with air brakes. So I just want you guys to realize the difference between condition codes are what is kind of in place that you have to follow in order to drive, and then endorsement codes is where you demonstrated a specific skill or you took a driver's training program and you got that additional endorsement added to your driver's license. So those condition codes and endorsement codes, they appear on your driver's license. And so for an example here, we can see that this driver's license, Mr. Sample, he has a class 5 and a class 6 on his driver's license. So we know that he's able to operate any car, vehicle, or truck that's 2-axle, and he also can operate a motorcycle. But he can't operate a heavy haul truck or anything because he doesn't have that class. And then if you look just underneath of his driver's license number, there's that number at the top. Right under there, there's a little section that says condition/endorsement. That would be your condition code or your endorsement code. So right here, this driver has no condition codes or endorsement codes. But like I said, if you say you needed glasses or corrective lenses, then it would have an A right there. So they put that on there. That's why all these codes are alphabetical. So, because they wouldn't be able to write all these things out on your driver's license. So they converted them into a code system that would appear on your driver's license. And that way, anybody who looks at your license knows what you're restricted to or able to do. That makes sense? So here's the list of all those driver's license condition codes. And I know it's a little boring and a little dry and hard to memorize all of them, but they very well could ask you about any of those endorsement codes or condition codes. So it is beneficial to memorize some of them because they're very well likely may ask you for one of those on the knowledge test. So as I mentioned, page 19 of your driver's guide, maybe highlight that, that list of the codes because it's beneficial to memorize them. And that brings us to the end of chapter 1.